It is a great honor to be here. Always have loved cloud businesses. It's fun to see so many entrepreneurs in the room. Today, I'm going to almost double-click a little bit on what David said. David's got a ton of great information. I'm going to give you the view from the operator side, from running some of the fastest-growing SaaS businesses at Slack, Zendesk, and Salesforce. My background is actually spent my first half of my career in B2C. So I did a startup right out of college. I didn't even know about VCs. My life would have been a lot easier had I known because I didn't have a lot of money coming out of college. But we did a gaming startup. We grew to about 10 million members, profitable. Every dollar counted. I totally understand that. I get it. And it made me really rethink about growth. How do you scale, but how do you scale efficiently? So sold that, went on to IGN Entertainment. That was a big network of entertainment sites. So IGN, Rotten Tomatoes, Ask Men, built it up to about 75 million unique visitors, sold that to News Corp. Spent about 4 years at News Corp running a lot of their online sites, so Fox Sports, Wall Street Journal, American Idol, just kind of crazy. Built it up to, I think, to the third largest B2C network at the time. And then got a call from Salesforce. And I'd always really respected Salesforce. Back in the day, they were really the pioneer of the cloud. They were one of the first ones that came up with this concept that all of us are benefiting from now, the shift away from on-prem. Came in as the SVP of marketing, ran a bunch of different teams there on the marketing side. Got a great opportunity to go over to Zendesk when there really wasn't a marketing team. Got to build that up from scratch, really modern edge playbook, start to do a lot of fun things, took them through an IPO. And then most recently at Slack. Again, came in very early before the go-to-market teams have been established, helped build up the marketing, sales, success, and support. So really what today is about is just, hey, here's the stuff that worked. I'm going to tell you a few things that didn't work, avoid some scar tissue for you, but really it just helped us ignite that growth. After doing all these operator roles for 20 years, I've had a ton of fun, but now I'm shifting more into board and advisory work, so I actually work with a lot of companies like yourself and thinking about how you can ignite that hyper growth and how you can scale your own organizations. Cool, so the first strategy we use, and this is something I really got from Mark at Salesforce, which is the idea of being customer-centric. And a lot of people say, oh, it's all about the customer, but it's another thing when you kind of recognize that every single interaction a customer has with you is your brand. It's not a slogan, it's not a logo. It's this idea of like every single interaction. And if you think about it in B2B, and just a little pulse check here, who is in B2B SaaS? Okay, awesome. And who does SMB? All right, in enterprise? Okay, it's about half and half here. When you look at the B2B go-to-market approach, it's something that's always frustrated me. It's in many cases, it's a 30-year-old dusty playbook. And you have this incredible innovation happening on the product side, but for B2B and the sales, a lot of times it's a very traditional playbook. Do your press releases, run some events, field sales, call it a day, right? And I just always thought you could innovate on that. And this idea around customer centricity is that every one of those touch points is somewhere where you can innovate on. And if you think about it, a lot of things we do now are it's pretty bad experiences. How many of you have gone to a website for a B2B SaaS product, just want to learn a little bit more about it, and you can't even watch a video. You have to fill out 17 fields. You're going to get called before you're ready. You're going to get oversold, overpromised. Maybe you start going into the product, you've spent a bunch of money, now everyone runs away. You need help, you can't find it. You got to reach out to support. It's going to be 5 days until you get a response there. It's a horrible experience. And yet, I would guess, if I asked every one of you, what is your number one source of leads, you'd probably say organic growth. We are so dependent on organic growth, and yet we give people horrible experiences. So I think this whole idea of customer success is something I got from Mark. It's the idea of just relentlessly focusing on their success, all the different touch points. Now, when I moved from Salesforce to Zendesk and Slack, I wanted to operationalize that. I want to say, okay, we're all about the customer experience and that journey, but how do you actually incentivize your teams to do that? Because a lot of the traditional metrics, MQLs, closed deals, again, that's incentivizing the behavior of locking every single piece of content you have, of selling people more than they want. So how do you really have a customer-centric company, but without any metrics behind it? And so what we did was I really embraced Net Promoter Score and customer satisfaction, CSAT. At Zendesk, we run NPS to everyone, like everyone, every user, every admin, every owner. We could segment it. We could find out, like, what are the top 3 reasons that people were recommending Zendesk? And what were the top 3 reasons they weren't? And sometimes it's a little bit scary, but ask yourself here, do you know the top 3 reasons your company is being recommended? Do you know the top 3 reasons it isn't? Right? That's really powerful data. That actually can help shape your messaging. It can help shape your value proposition. At Zendesk, when we ran that, the NPS data, it was really interesting. On the promoters, we found out that people just wanted a simple and easy-to-use product. And we're adding feature after feature after feature. We're adding triple regression forecasting modules and workflows and processes. They just want it to be simple. And on the detractor side, we thought they would want, again, these advanced features. They wanted the pages to load faster. If you're a customer support agent and you're working on tickets 10 hours a day, waiting 5 seconds for a page to load, that's horrible, right? They wanted just the basic search to work better. They're used to using Google and getting great answers, and it really made us repivot what we were focusing on. NPS was great. At Slack, we tried to innovate there as well. So we actually incentivized our salespeople not just on how many deals they're closing, but the average NPS of their accounts. We would actually run a transactional CSAT survey after a sales deal had closed and went back to those people that bought the product and said, hey, your salesperson, Sally, how responsive was she? How knowledgeable was she? How courteous was she? At Slack, we had values when we would hire people around courtesy and empathy. We'd actually try to go through the interview process and go, hey, is this an empathetic person? Can they put themselves in the customer's shoes? Like, this is all around a customer-centric strategy, and I thought it was a big differentiator for us. So the bar I would always tell my teams at Slack, and again, at that point, I was kind of running the sales, marketing, success, and support teams, was, look, your bar is not, did you get someone to buy Slack? Your bar is, did you get them to recommend Slack? And it's a harder bar, it's a higher bar, but I thought it was, a much more, made us rethink go-to-market, made us rethink how we approach sales, how we approach marketing. We had more support people than sales people. We had as many success people as sales, probably more success people. And ask yourself that, like, are you front-loading the process? Is it all about just getting those people in and then just wiping your hands? And I bought a lot of software over my days, and I've seen it so many times where I've been wined and dined, and then I sign the contract and everyone runs away, right? It's a different methodology. When everything is around that recommend, it's a huge difference. A little bit of an eye chart here, but this is kind of the modern marketing org. I was really fortunate to come in at both Zendesk and Slack with ground zero. Was able to build these teams up from scratch. And again, really just tried to innovate on what are kind of best in breed teams. How do you build these teams out? So I'm not going to go through all these. I'll just highlight a couple. Ops and analytics is absolutely critical that you've got the right attribution modeling, that you're building a modern tech stack. I'll talk about that a little bit. Campaigns, that you're running internal and external campaigns. I don't like the idea of a demand gen team. Every team in marketing is about building that demand. Things like delight. A lot of people don't think about their brand or don't think about how are you unexpectedly bringing a little joy into people's lives. Whether that's through swag, whether that's through the product, identifying your champions, really building best-in-breed customer marketing teams, lifecycle nurturing. These are all really critical elements. Now, of course, not everyone is going to report into VP. You're going to have a couple people that merge there, but the idea is I like these flat organizations and best-of-breed teams. When you're thinking about your modern tech stack too, hey, this is awesome. We got a whole bunch of people in this audience that are creating incredible applications. You don't need to buy just one generalized one that does everything. I think on the marketing side, you really need to have your best-in-breed tech here. You got to have algorithmic signals for your lead scoring, your multi-touch attribution, customer references, lifecycle messaging. I'm not going to go through all these. These are ones that I've used. I have a lot of faith in. I think they're great, but there's tons of great solutions there. The thing is, too, is when you scale, it's a difference when you're going 0 to 10 million. You're doing a lot of manual stuff. People can make it happen. But when you start to really scale into hypergrowth mode, you have to have automation. You have to have process. You have to have tools that are going to allow you to really enter that hypergrowth mode. So I definitely say at Slack and Zendesk, we really try to utilize a modern tech stack that gave us a lot of boost. Content marketing, love content marketing. Great way to scale, great way to organize. This is kind of the playbook we use at Zendesk. We would identify an audience, say mid-market. Hey, what are your top pain points? Build top funnel, mid-funnel, bottom funnel content around that. If you make content marketing, you're doing top of funnel, don't talk about your company. It's something which we really try to do at Zendesk. Like, it's top of funnel, it's about their pain points. One of our most popular pieces of content was the top right one there. 10 interview questions for hiring great customer service reps. We would have never guessed that. But it was a big pain point. If you're a customer support manager, You know, a lot of times you're interviewing people the first time, you don't know what questions to ask. You know, it's a great way for them to introduce them to our brand, and then we would nurture them with other pieces of content through the funnel. The other thing we did was you looked at the top channels there, a lot of times our ads were pieces of content. You know, you have to realize a lot of times what I discovered at Salesforce Zendesk, people often, the first time they see you until they sign up for a lead, that can be 3-6 months. And then from a lead to actually buying you, that can be another 6 months. You have 12 months worth of touches there. Don't expect that someone's going to find out about you and buy you the next day. There's tons of good studies that say your brand has to be mentioned around 20, 30 times before you get active recall. Content marketing was a big part. Love pricing. Always think about your pricing. Don't be afraid to price based on value. I always say the premium you have in pricing is the delta between your NPS and your competitor's NPS. If you don't know that, find out. You can actually get your competitor's NPS. This is a really interesting one. When we were at Zendesk, we had an enterprise plan, $99. I was really curious, like, what is the demand elasticity curve? We ran a split test. We put a 125 price point there and a 99 price point. Get the results back. I'm like, okay, of course 99 won, but by how much? 125 won. Blew it out of the water. It had more demand, more interest. And you got to remember, too, what's happening is we're all in SaaS here. We all use SaaS. We're like, oh, this is great. Incredible products, low price. 99% of the population is coming from a world of using on-prem, expensive, crappy solutions. When they see prices so low, there's almost a little bit of perception, hey, are these guys for real? Is this legit? You know, understand that. Innovate on pricing. At Slack, we tried something different, where for people coming in, you know, if you stopped using the product, we would give credits and refunds back. We had like a 10-day active window. And that was kind of cool because A, the admins would get these emails like, hey, you just got this credit back. Oh, wow, okay, they're kind of on our side. And B, we didn't get paid in Slack unless our users were happy and actually using the product to really line us together. Innovate, iterate on these things. That was super helpful for us. Frictionless free trials, something we tried to innovate on Slack was we didn't do, most B2B trials are time-bound or user-bound, right? So up to 5 users can use it for the first 2 weeks. Slack, nope. You can go straight in there. You can have a team of 10,000 people on the free plan. And not only that, we really thought about what are the upgrade features. As opposed to putting the paywalls at the front, we tried to put them towards the back. Let people get some value out of it first before you're forcing them to make a hard decision. I love brand campaigns too. You know, I'm a big believer. Lead gen is great. I do a ton of it, but lead gen is short-term leads. Brand is long-term leads. You know, we all see lead gen ads, right? Free trial, 20% off, sign up now, giant CTA. Again, this expectation that someone's just going to buy it that minute. But, you know, a brand at the end of the day, it's about the emotion. It's about how people feel about you. So I'm going to run some quick commercials here. We'll show them to you. This is the national campaigns we ran for Slack. And here's the first one. I like the sloth. One other one. This is a totally, like a little bit different style, still theme of amazing teams, but this was a black and white one. All right, so one of those ads cost $1 million, one cost 50,000. Who thought the animals cost $1 million? All right, and who think the black and white cost $1 million? All right, it was the animals. It's a good reason too. You can find agencies that'll make stuff very expensively. You can find agencies that'll make stuff a little bit cheaper. But we actually ran both of them in a national campaign. Talk a little bit how we measure it. There was one more. I don't think we have time to show this one. If you have the deck, you can click on it. They're all linkable. That's a fun one. That's a Zendesk one that we had ran. But you run these campaigns, right? And how do you actually measure them? Now, of course, most of us here, David talked a lot about it. You've got your traditional funnel, right? You've got your MQLs, your leads, your pipeline, your ACV. But at the same time, I'm a big believer, like, don't listen to people like, oh, you can't measure brand. You can measure it. There's aided recall, unaided recall, share voice, sentiment, share conversation, tons of good metrics out there. For those not familiar, aided recall simply says, like, for Slack, hey, you send out a survey, you could use like SurveyMonkey, choose your target audience, and then it simply says, like, for team communication software, which of the following companies are you aware of? Aided actually lists them, so like HipChat, Slack, Yammer. Unaided doesn't, they have to write it in. And when I first started, Slack was really low. You know, in San Francisco, super high. You go outside of that, people didn't know us, right? And we got it down to where we could actually model out for an exact amount of money, how much does it cost to increase, to get a point of awareness. We would do a bunch of other things too, do geo-specific tests. That really helped us out. Like, so we could run tests, let's say in Denver, Seattle, Austin, and measure the lift both in brand and on the lead side versus cities, similar cities that did not receive it. Big believer in multi-touch attribution, you know, building that software in. You know, the B2B world, I don't know why, but everyone's obsessed with first or last click. I think it's a horrible, horrible metrics. You know, again, when you have these long 6-month year cycles, you know, your people are interacting with you 20, 30 times. You can't give all the credit to the first or last. You have to look at the nurturers, the influencers, best of breed technology there. Even like a poor man solution, we did at Slack, super easy. An optional sign-up survey, we get $50 in credits, and we just ask people like, hey, where did you hear about us, right? All these signals help give you confidence that you've got the right CAC payback, that you've got the right penetration, that you're making the right decisions. This is something that, you know, we really tried to employ at Zendesk. Like, have a brand with a personality. You know, you're going against, your job's tough, right? We're all going against incumbents that have way more people, way more dollars than any of us, right? And when you have a brand that has a little personality, people, they have an affinity to that. They have an emotional, connection to it. Think about your color schemes. Think about the visual identity. Think about your editorial, your tone, your voice. Take that into the product. I've seen so many companies where they have this great website, lots of, brand personality. Then you go into the product, and it's like this sterile, lifeless hospital room. It's just black and white, purely utilitarian. And you're expecting people to love you, to go recommend you, to pay a higher premium, to lower your churn. When you have a brand with a personality, I thought that was a big differentiator for us. It's like when the welcome loading screen. That could have just been a little hourglass spinning around, but it's like, no, let's do a little fun message here. Or even there's like Easter eggs, right? And anyone knows this, like you can actually look at the release notes for Slack in your mobile app, and we write them and make them really humorous and funny. Just a little something that's normally very dry. That was a huge part for us. Testing is huge. This homepage, I think, was number 43. We tested so many different homepages. In fact, it became really hard to displace the challenger. Execs, including myself, are terrible at choosing winners. If we went with what me or Mikkel at Zendesk or Stuart at Slack, we'd be terrible. We're always bad. Like, test these things out. You never know what's going to win. Whether that's your ads themselves, the home pages, so many different things you can test. Be data-driven there. Talked about the brand campaigns already a bit. Ruthlessly stack rank. So this is a strategy we learned at Salesforce. Mark would have this concept of a V2 mom. He would basically, at the beginning of the year, he'd list his 10 priorities in stack ranked order. And then the next layer would list their 10 priorities in stack ranked order, a cascade down, and everyone in the organization had to literally choose what are the 10 things they're going to do that year in stack ranked order. And that's tough because at Salesforce, that was a multi-product company. You're choosing babies, right? Which one is more important? But it was so important because we had 10,000 people. Unless you have that alignment and you're ruthlessly stack ranking, it's just very difficult for the company to move lockstep. Ideas are a dime a dozen, right? Anybody here can think of 100 things they should be doing, but can you think of like the most important ones and stack rank it? And does everyone in your organization know that? I think a great litmus test is when you go back to your offices, run into a random person in the company and just go, hey, what are the top 3 most important things our company is doing? You know, if they don't know them, like, that's an issue, right? You know, just this transparency, this visibility, stack ranking, it just allowed us this great focus at Salesforce. Customer stories, always big. You know, we used to have this game at Salesforce where in the marketing, we'd always think we could kind of beat and put some cool infographic up there or some process change. And Mark would always be like, no, I want to see customers. And if anybody's been to a Salesforce event, you're going to see customers on the walls, customer marketing. You know, at the end of the day, we can go out there and say why our product or service is amazing and tell them, well, this is why it's so great. Or you could have your customer say it. And guess which one your prospect is going to believe a little bit more, has a little bit more credibility? It's your customer. So wherever you can, I thought that was a big success of Salesforce, just focusing on those customer stories. Easy to use. I talked about this a little bit in the NPS surveys. It would continually come up, whether it was Slack, Zendesk, a lot of the other clients that I work with. If you're NPS surveys, there's a really good chance, and one of the things your users will love about you is that it's simple and easy to use. Don't fall into the trap of adding feature after feature after feature to make it suck and make it hard to use. In fact, I would even argue, you know, when you go back, look at the feature that's most used, that's 80% of your users use the most, and just make that more polished. So at Slack, we kind of took a little different approach. I know the kind of the current theme is get your product out there as fast as possible and let your users react to it. We took another approach. We would polish stuff intensely. So for those that use Slack, if anyone ever added a little emoji reaction to a post, that was in development where we internally released it for maybe about 6 months. I probably saw 30 different versions of it. The first version was horrible from a user interface perspective. It was really hard to add the emoji. It would kind of come in, it would come off. It was just terrible. The one you see today was completely polished. Point to we just made it so simple, so intuitive. Users absolutely love that. It's a huge differentiator. And especially a lot of the incumbents you're going against, you know, they're kind of old school, traditional software. They're not going to have easy use behind them. This is one of the best things that you can differentiate on early. Last couple of things here, shared metrics. So at Slack, we had high-level goals around daily active users, ARR, and all the functional teams shared those. I've been part of organizations in the past where every team has a different goal and an oftentimes competing goal. I think it creates a lot of politics, a lot of backstabbing. I think having shared metrics, everyone kind of pulled together. It just created a much greater sense of teamwork, and I thought that was a nice strategy. The last thing is have fun, all right? It's a long slog, you know, you're in the trenches. So this is a fun thing we did at Zendesk. For anybody that does SERPs or Google search engines rankings, you'll often see that a common search is your company plus alternative, you know, because people are searching for other versions, other software, and it was always some competitor that would rank or listing to all of our competitors. So we were like, well, what if we did kind of a fun video, and we invented this fictional band. So these were all folks that worked at Zendesk, that were on the marketing and some other teams, and we made this little video. And it's an amazing video. I've teased it, but we don't have it, apparently. But have fun with it, and thank you guys so much.